On a bitterly cold November night, Locomotive Rail Limited's 37429 passes Hazel Grove on the 0 Zulu 68 Peak Forest Cement sidings to Crewe HS. In this issue of Videosim, a look at the GCR network starting with Class 37s from both RRL and LRL. Class 60s and other motive power on ground recovery and spoil trains. Another look at the aftermath of the closure of Hestercombe Works. Views of celebrity steam locomotives Blue Peter and Britannia. Moving on to TS, a look at various Loco convoys. Followed by a look at stock moves behind various motive power. Class 37s assisting in depot construction. And finally, a look at light engine moves to and from various locations. This also includes the preparation of the LRL Harrogate railhead treatment train diagrams. On the 3rd of June 2024, Rydal Rail Limited's 37402 and 37429 are seen moving onto RRL's depot at Baxton. RRL's 37154 is seen passing Lanfield on the 17th of June, working the 0 Zulu 37 Leafminster RTC to Saltmarsh TMD. At Saltmarsh, 154 stops to allow the crew to operate the ground frame into the TMD. Not long after, LRL's newly overhauled 97301, which was purchased from Network Rail following its withdrawal, exits the depot with 37407 on the 0 Zulu 97 Saltmarsh LIP to Saltmarsh LIP test run. As mentioned, LRL purchased 97301 shortly after it was withdrawn by Network Rail. Despite under new owners, 97301 will retain its number and its ETCS equipment. The pair of Class 37s were seen operating via Landfield towards Gyles Mount. Passing through Gyles, they will then proceed onto the Gofflin Loop circuit before returning to Gyles for a reversal. The train, then led by 37407, will depart for LRL's depot at Saltmarsh. Upon the arrival at Gyles Mount, 66518 is seen departing on car carriers for Baxton Docks. Car carriers can often be seen operated by Freightliner's extensive fleet of Class 66s. The line is clear and 37407 now departs, leading the train to Saltmarsh. Later that same night, and finishing its test working, is RRL's 37154, seen passing through Mooresfoot High Level en route to Baxton. A few days later, and another LRL 37 is under test. This time 37905 on a loaded test run following repairs after its brake failure. Once again, 37407 is used as a backup loco. After running round the train, 37905 leads the 6 Quebec 96 Fatherwell to Minestow MOD. LRL purchased 37603 and 37604 from HBRF during the liquidation period of HW. The original plan was for both locos to return to active service. However, after a review by LRL, it was decided that 37603 would be sold on to Western Rail Preservation, and 37604 would be retained and undergo a major exam ready to return to service. On 22nd of July, WRP's 37655 was tasked with collecting 37603 from the sidings at Saltmarsh. Now, rare views of the Traverser at Saltmarsh TMD in action. With 603 collected, 37655 leads the 0 Zulu 38 Saltmarsh TMD to Marston Vale Heritage Railway. One of Rydal Rail Limited's usual workings at this time was the movement of spoil out of Baxton Docks to the land recovery site at Leafminster. Here 37429 exits RRL's depot on the 0 Zulu 29 Baxton LMD to Baxton Docks. At Baxton, 429 stops to allow the crossing to be lowered. Having collected the loaded wagons, 429 departs on the 6 Zulu 22 Baxton Dock reception sidings to Leafminster Land Recovery. On the 17th of July, Locomotive Rail Limited's 37906 was hired in to RRL, and here departs Saltmarsh on the 0 Zulu 96 Saltmarsh LIP to Leafminster Land Recovery. (37906), now paired with RRL's 37429, work the 6 Zulu 96 Leafminster Land Recovery to Baxton LMD. In the train is the empty spoil wagons, a set of flats, and brand new J&A wagons. At Minestow on track plant sidings, the train leaves the main line and traverses the Minestow MOD lines en route for Baxton LMD. After dropping the train in the LMD sidings, 429 and 906 work onto Baxton Depot. Rydal Rail's 60011 and 60010 now top and tail the new J&As on a test run from Baxton LMD to Fatherwell and back. RRL's fleet of 4 active Class 60s are planned to be utilised on land recovery trains using these brand new wagons. .60011 leads the train into Fatherwell. Here it will reverse and .60010 will lead the train back to Baxton. Meanwhile, privately owned 56001 is hired in by Colas Rail to work the 6 Charlie 54 Chirk Chrono span to Baxton Log Terminal. After 56001 departs, 60010 leads the test train out of Fatherwell. After testing of the wagons was complete, 37906, 37429, along with two of RRL's 66s, lead the 6 Zulu 37 Baxton LMD to Leafminster Land Recovery. On the 17th of July, RRL's Class 60s, 60011 and 60010 top and tail the set of flatbeds on the 6 Zulu 60 Baxton LMD to Hestercombe Works reception sidings. This was a special operation set up by RRL to recover the intact lighting towers around the Loco shed at Hestercombe. This was the first train into Hestercombe Works since the 30th of May 2024, and the track conditions meant that progress was slow. A few hours later, and 60011 leads the now loaded train of flats back into the reception sidings. .60010 now leads the 7 X-Ray 60 Hestercombe Works reception sidings to Baxton LMD. The intact lighting towers will be reused at the RRL site. The day after saw another train to HW. This time Western Rail Preservation's 37466 leads the 5 Mike 66 Hestercombe Works reception sidings to Dovey Junction, MVR. A few days later saw what is currently the final move in and out of HW. Former HBRF Loco 37679, then owned by Northern Traction Limited, leads 43465 and 43468 on the 6 Zulu 43 Hestercombe Works reception sidings to Mindstow Storage sidings, MOD. We will now look at steam services. First up, 60532 Blue Peter arrives into Goffin on a charter service to Fatherwell. The tour is now seen passing Minestow en route to Gyles Mount. It shall then depart Gyles, running via Lanfield and Barcy before its last port of call at Fatherwell. Blue Peter is the last surviving member of the LNER A2 Pacifics and has recently returned to mainline service. It is now seen under the canopy at Gyles, awaiting the off for Fatherwell in the glorious evening sunlight. During the Christmas period of 2022, BR Standard 7MT number 70,000 Britannia could be seen operating the GCR Christmas Special Rail Tour on the 23rd of December. The locomotive is seen here departing Goffin with 37688 on the rear of the train. Like Blue Peter in the present day, this tour also operated the Goffin Loop circuit to Fatherwell via Gyles Mount and Lanfield, here seen passing Morsfoot en route to Gyles. On the 27th of June 2024, LRL's 56109 was tasked with a number of unique moves. First seen passing Attenborough on the 5 Zulu 56 Warsop storage site to Old Dalby. Having collected former LRL and then Swankage owned 50025, the train passes Sileby on the 5 Zulu 57 Old Dalby to Middleton AVR. Now, with ex-Wigston Rail Services and now Swankage owned 37411 tagged on the rear, 109 leads the 5 Zulu 58 Middleton AVR to Canterbury South. On the 4th of June, 56109 returns now with WRS owned 37710 and 37520. On the 5 Alpha 37 Canterbury South to Warsop SS. LRL 37344 and 37229 pass Spondon on the 0 Zulu 33 Derby RTC to Leicester LIP. At this point, LRL's newest loco was 37344, which was an ex-Ashbourne Valley loco. AVR had planned to have 344 on the main line, and it was even fitted with a GSMR system. However, this never happened, and it was sold to LRL along with 37670. To get the loco out as soon as possible, 344 was fitted with YPAC lights and retained its green livery, although with full yellow ends applied. Now having collected 3 barrier coaches, 37229 leads the 5 Zulu 33 Leicester LIP to Great Yarmouth CHS. Sadly, not long after this footage was taken, 37229 failed and the train had to halt at Loughborough to allow 37229 to be taken off. Later that night, and now running very late, 344 continues with 5 Zulu 33 past East Midlands Parkway. The following day, and 37344 is seen on the Wherry lines on the 5 Zulu 44 Yarmouth CHS to Lowestoft reception. Because of 229's absence, the train had to run to Norwich to allow 344 to run round. Half an hour later, and 344 returns from Norwich en route for Lowestoft. On the way back, 37344 stopped off at Loughborough to collect the Demick 37229 and is now seen on the 0 Zulu 28 Loughborough Brush to Shirebrook TMD. Both 37798 and 37515 by this time were in new liveries. 37515 was outshopped in British Steel Blue, and 37798 was painted in LRL's brand new red and grey livery. Another new addition to LRL's active fleet was 37888, which emerged from Warsop in battleship blue livery. Here seen arriving into Shirebrook on its first loaded test run. On the rear is 37798. In this consist is LRL's Buckeye translator vehicles number 6390 and 6391. After a crew pickup, 888 departs on the 5 Zulu 88 Warsop to Derby RTC. After running round, 888 now leads the 5 Zulu 89 Derby RTC to Warsop. Another carrier of LRL's new livery was 31602, seen here leading LRL's Mark IIs 5487 and 9419 en route for refurbishment at Derby RTC. British Steel liveried 37515 passes Attenborough on the 0E15 Shirebrook to Middleton AVR. Later that day, 515 passes Belper with WRS 37251, 37670 and 37796 on the 0 Mike 15 Middleton to Kilby Bridge Junction. Moving to the High Marnham test track, LRL 37683 and 37428, top and tail 37702, 37883 and Tunbridge East owned 37431 on the 0 Mike 01 Shirebrook to Warsop. At the same location, 56109 leads 20165, 20092, 37798, 40154, 37427, 31205, 37229 and 37689 on the 6 Zulu 01 Shirebrook to Warsop. These trip workings from Shirebrook to Warsop and back are regular WTT timings, running as 0 Mike 01 to Warsop and 0 Mike 02 from Warsop back to Shirebrook. These are used to trip locos to and from LRL's two sites. Moving to the Warsop site, 2207 leads 37798, 37605, 37670 and 20310, running 0 Mike 02 back to Shirebrook. .37515 and 37798 are back out this time, escorting 37605 from Shirebrook to Barrow Hill in order for 605 to undergo a G exam. On another occasion, 37515, 37344 and 37229 passed Long Eaton on 0 Zulu 15 Shirebrook to Derby RTC. Back on the High Marnham test track and Tunbridge East groups, 37087 is seen on short-term hire to LRL to work the 0 Mike 01 Shirebrook to Warsop with 37888 and 37798. By mid-November the snow had fallen and LRL's Class 20s 20092 and 20165 work the 0 Zulu 20 Warsop to Derby RTC. Later that day, they escort 37344, 37229 and 27429 on the 0 Zulu 21 Derby RTC to Warsop. On the beginning of August 2024, LRL's 37515 and 37683 were hired in by Wyatt Rail Limited to work a number of spoil trains in conjunction with the construction of WRL's depot at Hakkum near York. Here the pair depart Sheffield on the 6 Delta 94 York Yard North to Humberstone Road. Later that day, the pair returned now with empties on the 6 Echo 95 Humberstone Road to York Yard North. The following day saw another loaded run, this time led by 37683, once again en route for Humberstone Road. The return, 6 Echo 95, was cancelled, so the following day saw the pair top and tailing the empties on the 6 Zulu 95 Humberstone Road to York Yard North. On the 16th of June 2024, LRL's 37515 escorts Tunbridge East Group's 37002 on the 0 Zulu 37 Tunbridge West Yard to Old Dalby. Wigston Rail Limited's 37796 and 37718, running under LRL operation, work the 0M37 Kilby Bridge Junction to Shirebrook TMD. This was in order for 37796 to undergo a repaint. Back with 37515 now, as the Loco enters Derby Station on the 0 Zulu 16 Derby RTC to York Frau Europa to join its fellow LRL classmates in 2024's RHTT season. Another member of the RHTT season of 2024 was 37718, hired in from Wigston Rail Services, seen passing through Leicester on the 0 Zulu 18 Kilby Bridge Junction to York Frau Europa. LRL's 37888 and TEG's 37111 work the 0 Zulu 11 Shirebrook to Crewe. Following 37429's use on the RHTT diagram, it was repainted into LRL's new livery alongside 37670, which had been purchased from WRS and returned to service for use as a super shunter at Peak Forest, on hire to Victor Rail. Here, 37429 and 37670 pass Edale on the 0 Zulu 67 Shirebrook TMD to Peak Forest to Mex sidings. After running as 0 Zulu 68 to Crewe, 37429 is escorted by 37888 on the 6 Zulu 69 Crewe to Shirebrook. Now back to Derby for a final couple of views. LRL 31602 arrives in on the 0 Zulu 30 Derby RTC to the Elam Valley Railway at Canterbury South.